Oh, okay, good. I'll start now. This is Sonia Wilkin speaking from Clayton Valley Village. We're delighted to have another Lunch and Learn program, which Arlene Lewandowski has coordinated. Just to let you know a little bit more about Clayton Valley Village, because we not only have members and volunteers, but we have guests from the outside world as well. Clayton Valley Village is one of probably 300 to 400 villages nationwide, which started 20 years ago in Boston, Beacon Hill. The concept of the village where people would stay in their own homes as long as they could, with help from volunteers that would be giving services to members for free. In addition to that, the whole concept of a village is to keep us as a community together, which became even more important during the pandemic. We did a lot of in-person things originally. We went to Zoom right away, and we've Zoomed our way through life for the last year and a half. And we are now reopening certain things. We've had happy hours in person. We've had a Sunday supper. So life is coming back, and we're so happy about that. But Clayton Valley Village, just to let you know, we started maybe 7 or 8 years ago in planning it. We actually launched 5 years ago, April 1st. So our 5th anniversary is coming up. And we all have made such wonderful, wonderful friends. We just didn't know how many people around that we just would love. So anyway, what I want to do is introduce Lisa now, and it's Mitoni, Italian way, I asked her, who is with Travel Center Tours and Travel. And she's going to talk about herself, her experiences, and guidelines for this post-pandemic travel. So take it away, Lisa. Give us a little of your own bio. I just introduced you, but tell us
Sure.
about yourself.
Yeah, great. Thank you for having me. So, yes, my name is Lisa Matoni, and Travel Center Tours and Travel is a family-owned and operated business. So, my mom's actually been in the travel industry for over 40 years. She has retired, and she opened up Travel Center back in 1993. And the story is kind of cool about how she started the business. She was working for an agency in Albany, California, and the agency didn't follow all of the rules in place with California Seller of Travel. And unfortunately, the husband and wife had some marital spats, and the wife took off with all the money. And my mom realized it was her opportunity to sweep in and open up her own business. So her and my dad at that point pulled together their own finances and opened up the business. And they went ahead and out of their own pocket paid deposits for clients that were never paid so that they could continue to travel, and have kind of built the foundation of our company to, clearly follow the rules, but also to really advocate for our clients. So it's kind of a cool history to know how Travel Center became to be. So when we first opened, we were also in Albany, and then about 15 years ago, actually almost 16 years ago now, we moved here to Pleasant Hill, and have been in the same office this entire time. I came on with Travel Center almost 9 years ago. This is a second career for me. I was in the medical field for 18 years, and my neck was killing me and my hands were hurting, and it was time to try something new. And so started here at the agency, and has never even looked back, and super happy with where we're at. So I specialize in all of the group travel. So I do not only day trips for lots of our senior centers and fraternal organizations and clubs and groups, etc. But I also do extended travel, and then I also obviously do individual travel. So we are full service. When we came back from COVID, obviously we are some of the very few that survived, and I'm proud of us. We still have myself and 2 other agents working in the office, which I think is something to be proud of. And we are going strong, which is also exciting. So I'm just going to go ahead and talk a lot about what we've been doing while, you know, our state and counties were closed, to make sure that when we were able to reintroduce travelers to travel, that things were in place to make sure that everybody feels safe. And we're constantly changing and constantly adapting. And so we'll just kind of go over what we're doing. So I'll start with day trips. So, like I said, we work with a lot of senior centers and organizations to offer day trips to the community. And so, what these day trips look like, they're put together for an individual group, and it includes generally a motor coach picking you up and taking you to a destination, whether it's a museum, whether it's an outside venue, whether it's a tour in San Francisco with a step-on guide. There's a huge variety of things we do, but there's things that have put in place to make sure that when you do these day trips now, you feel safe. So for instance, at restaurants, in the past, we used to always try and get everybody to sit at long tables. I wanted 10 to 15 folks at a table because I wanted everybody on a tour to feel like they were part of the group and nobody feeling left out. And so we've gone back now to having smaller tables so that, you know, you're in a more of your social bubble with either 2 or 4 guests. So we've sort of changed that. When possible, we do outdoor dining. Obviously, going into this next season, you know, at some point we'll have to really go back in. But, you know, we definitely try and focus on outdoor dining now, which is something that we had kind of shied away from for many years. At museums, this hasn't really changed for us, but I do know that it's something that folks are so used to hearing now, but timed entrances. So at museums, at you know, lots of other destination points, we arrive at a designated time because the facilities have limited capacity. So this also helps with social distancing when you're inside. So we're not all, you know, focused around one exhibit, et cetera. So we follow those guidelines. And then the big thing that always comes up, and the question that lots of folks have is, well, a bus. I have to sit on a bus with 40 or 50 people. What are they doing to make sure I'm safe? So we've worked a lot with the bus companies that we contract with, and they've worked really hard putting together some protocols as well. So we'll kind of talk about what they're doing. So each motor coach is cleaned and sanitized upon arrival to the yard. And why this is important is that in the past, a lot of the motor coach drivers had, you know, big farms or yards or lots of property. And so for them, it was easier for them at the end of a tour to drive their motor coach home at night. And so they would drive the bus back to their house, and they would, of course, clean it and take out the trash. But that's no longer allowed. So now the buses have to go back to the yard, and they have cleaners who go in immediately and wipe down every seat and every touch point. The drivers, not only that, the buses are fogged every single day. And so that's really important. You hear about fogging with, you know, the airplanes, but that's also happening on the motor coaches as well. So there's fogging happening so that all the nooks and crannies are all cleaned. The drivers are having temperatures checks taken at the yard prior to leaving. And then also definitely they're encouraged to stay home if they're feeling ill. The other thing is masks. So masks, just like if you're on an airplane, they are required for all guests. So you have to remember that motor coaches fall under the public transportation, whether it's contracted just for Clayton Village or whether you're going on County Connection. And so again, masking is required for not only your guests, but also for the motor coach driver. And then we also reserve that front row behind the driver. And we ask that no one's seated there so that the driver has some space as well. On the motor coaches, we also encourage folks to sit with somebody who they're traveling with, whether it's someone within their social bubble or their good friend or just somebody that they're close to. However, we don't sell buses at capacity any longer, just so that if there is somebody who feels more comfortable sitting in a row by themselves, we have that opportunity. And then coach restrooms. The restrooms in the coaches are definitely opened. However, we still encourage folks to use the restroom at a site rather than on the coach, just because there's no running water. It's just hand sanitizer. So that's something that we also do. So, traveling outside the US, how will I know when it's safe to travel? So, there's some photos here actually of some recent travels that I just did. So, there's a photo of me in front of the Acropolis. I was just in Greece in October. And then there's a photo of a tugboat. I was just on an inaugural sailing out of Florida on a celebrity cruise ship that I was invited to join them on. So I've sort of done international, I've done resorts, I've done cruising, and I will tell you that countries and the industry really is, they are doing so much to make sure that we are safe when we feel we are ready to travel. So when folks reach out and say, well, can I go here or can I go there? My first question is, if you feel comfortable going, we'll figure out if we can get you there. But this is, again, the beauty of working with a travel agent, is that I get daily updates from all of the different vendors. I get updates as well from insider travel reports that tell us what countries are open, what protocols are in place, etc. So in my opinion, traveling outside of the US at this point is definitely safe, but you have to be comfortable and ready to go. The one thing that comes up a lot is pre-COVID testing. A lot of people question whether they need to do this, whether they want to do this, where they can do this, how to get the testing. Again, this is the beauty of working with a travel agent, because I will provide you with testing locations. I will provide you with when you need to test prior to traveling. I will help you with the documentation that you need to do to travel outside the US. That is something I will help you with as an agent. So local testing sites, to get a rapid test prior to international travel is really challenging at the county sites. So I highly recommend that if you are looking at traveling outside the US, that you reach out to someone like myself to find out the best location to pay for a test that is will truly get you your results back in enough time. Generally speaking, those results or those testing are required between 72 and 48 hours prior to you boarding your aircraft here domestically. So generally speaking, 3 days or 2 days before, you've got to get your test at a reliable rapid testing site so that you can provide those testing results when you board the aircraft. And that's who you show it to. You will show your COVID results a bazillion times. So if you're flying, you'll show it upon checking in at the counter internationally. You will most likely also show it again when you arrive at the gate. And then you will also show the test result again when you land at the foreign port that you are arriving. When you are cruising, my own personal experience in Florida, they checked my negative COVID test along with my vaccination status 4 times before I even boarded the cruise ship. So that's also something that will happen. What else do you need? You definitely, traveling without being fully vaccinated is super, super challenging right now. You definitely need your vaccine card, and you will need it on hand while you're traveling. So you'll have to show that again. Aircraft, you'll have to show, this is international, aircraft, cruise ship, etc. And again, who can I call for help? me. You can always call Travel Center. The other thing that you will have to do is a lot of countries require you to fill out health forms prior to going. So the health ministries for each country has designated almost kind of like a contact tracing form. So those are another thing that agents have at their fingertips to share with you the link of what you need to fill out prior to your travel. You'll generally do it 72 hours before you go, and then you'll receive that QR code, which again will be checked at the airport upon boarding the aircraft, and then again as you clear customs and as you proceed into any country. So traveling even to Hawaii, you'll have to fill out their form. So traveling is not so simple where you just get on board. You now have to fill out some sort of contact tracing forms for most places. So the next question is then, where can I go without having to quarantine? So quite honestly, there are so many places now that are not requiring Americans to quarantine. So, and this list is constantly changing. I can't even add more to the slide without making it too cumbersome. But you can travel almost all places that tourists want to go right now. You can travel internationally without having to quarantine if you are fully vaccinated. So that's something to keep in mind. However, masking is still pretty much mandated throughout the world. I will tell you, in my experience, international travel, most countries, people are less hesitant and follow the rules to mask far better than we do here in the US. So masking restrictions are definitely in place while you're inside and in museums, et cetera, throughout the world. Cruising is a little bit different. Cruise ships that are fully vaccinated cruises, they do allow you to move freely aboard the vessel without masks. However, I do think that that's going to probably change in the next few months. I think around February, we'll see that start to change because with the vaccine mandates now touching younger age groups, I think that that's going to change and evolve a little bit. So we'll see how that looks. But for the most part, again, you will have to wear your mask internationally and overseas. But on cruise ships right now, if everyone is fully vaccinated, they're not requiring that. Coming back to the US can be a little bit challenging. So on January 26th, the CDC placed a guideline into effect that says all travelers entering the US from a foreign country must take a COVID-19 test 72 hours prior to boarding the aircraft. And so this was a little bit tricky at the beginning, but has become a little easier. There are self kits that can be used that I recommend, and I've used myself several times. There are nurses and doctors throughout the world who are making a fortune on us as travelers, being more than willing to come into a hotel and do our tests at the hotel. So it's definitely becoming much easier to get those tests to come back to the US. The big question is, what happens if I do test positive? And if you do test positive, you do have to quarantine. There are some countries that will cover your quarantine costs. There are some vendors, travel vendors, that will cover your cost of quarantine. They will cover your hotel. They will pay for your food. They will also send somebody to check on you every day. So there's definitely vendors and countries that are supporting tourism. If you are traveling somewhere that does not offer that, then you definitely want to make sure that you never travel without travel insurance. So if you are quarantined while you're traveling and you've taken out travel insurance, what will happen and what that will look like is that you will have to out of pocket pay for your hotel. And then when you return home to the US, you will then file a claim with your insurance company for your medical expenses and also for your time that you were quarantined. And then the travel insurance will kick in with reimbursements. So yes, you can file a claim for quarantining with travel insurance. It's not a problem at all. And again, where you quarantine just depends on the country. Some have quarantine hotels, some allow you to stay in the property that you were in. So there are definitely some regulations, but each country, their health ministry kicks in right away to help with that. And then again, beauty of traveling with a travel agent is that the travel agent definitely helps to support that. Believe it or not, we have so many people in our office right now. I can't believe it. We're very busy, so I'm sorry. Maggie, there's somebody at the door. Sorry, somebody's knocking at our door again. So that's about the testing coming back. So travel insurance. This is something that I tell folks, travel insurance is like brushing your teeth in the morning. You absolutely cannot do travel without insurance. There are several elements with travel insurance from the past that, we all knew, protecting travel dollars, etc. But now it's even beyond that. It is the medical insurance. It's covering you for quarantine. It's missed connections because, like Sonia, we spoke about having, flight delays, etc. These are all covered with your travel insurance. So that's the importance of having insurance. So you definitely want to make sure that no matter what you do, you insure your trip. You are not just protecting your travel dollars, you are protecting so much more. There are some countries that are now requiring each guest to have $50,000 worth of travel medical. So that's also very important to keep in mind. So quite often, folks say, "Oh, Lisa, don't worry about it. I'm using my American Express. I have travel insurance." You don't have the medical coverage that's required. So if you were quarantined or you did have to go to the hospital for breathing issues, you would not be covered with that insurance that's on your credit card. So that's why I say taking out insurance is like brushing your teeth. It's not an option. There's several ways you can do insurance. You can either buy insurance through the vendor. So say you're taking a Tauk tour or a Mayflower tour or a Colette tour, you can certainly purchase insurance through them. If you are doing Southwest and you want to insure your ticket, you can do that. It's not as crucial because you don't need the medical coverage if you're traveling domestically. I tell my clients that whether you buy insurance through me or through another insurance vendor, I don't care. I'm okay with it. I just want you to make sure you have insurance. So if any of you folks are actually traveling and this is a red flag for you and you think, "Oh, crud, I don't have travel insurance for something I have coming up on the books," you can certainly reach out to me separately. You can always go to my company website. I do have a link for travel insurance and you can kind of read up about it and kind of refamiliarize yourself with travel insurance and kind of get some insight to the importance of it. But like I said, I just don't let your travel dollars go unprotected. It's very, very important. Lots of folks have had to cancel trips, and I know that different people had different experiences. I can tell you as an agent who, in March when I had to close my office and I was sent home and sitting at my kitchen table and all I did was cancel and cry. I realized that there were definitely some vendors that are a little bit easier to work with for refunds, and there were definitely some vendors that were a little bit more challenging. And I feel like in the industry we have figured it out, and moving forward are definitely doing a better job with refunds. The cruise lines were the most challenging. And I'm sure a lot of you have had that experience. But again, several clients who are new to my office have said that they will never book without an agent, because having a travel agent be able to advocate for you for your refunds is really important. And most of our vendors, we receive a BDM, which is a business development manager. And so instead of just being able to call that 1-800 number and wait on permanent punishment hold forever while they try and tell you you're not going to get your refund, working with an agent, you have the resources of coming to us and having us help advocate, and we're able to get a live person who can then also advocate for you, the traveler. So that's the most important thing, is just making sure you've got somebody to advocate for yourself. So again, I've done quite a bit of traveling recently. I've flown throughout COVID. I've gone to, visit colleges with my daughter. I've gone to Cancun to do all inclusives. I've gone to Greece. I've gone to on cruises. I've flown and traveled and been around and have had great experiences. And I've done COVID testing coming back. And really for me, I do feel safe traveling. But again, I tell all my clients, I don't want you to travel till you feel safe. So if you are that person on the kind of border and not sure if you are ready to go or not, just wait another month or so. People are booking last minute. People are waiting till the end. I want everybody to always travel when they feel the most comfortable. So make sure that you travel when you are ready. The world is out there waiting, but you have to be ready to go. So thank you guys so much. And I'm ready to do some Q&A if you guys would like to.
People can either write in the chat room or, just free for all questions.
I have a question.
Yeah, Susan.
I'm going on a cruise in September 2022, next September.
Great.
I think about the cruise ships, because when COVID first happened, there was a Princess, right?
Cruise
ship right off San Francisco. But anyway, right. And then years ago on cruise ships, there was that Legionnaire's disease. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me what cruise ships are doing to really protect passengers?
Yeah, actually, I have to say I was super, super pleased. Can I ask you what cruise line you're going on? Are you comfortable sharing that?
Oh, yeah. It's Norwegian.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So honestly, and I just had a client who just got off the Bliss as well. So they were very comfortable. So the cruise industry, let's face it, they really got a lot of publicity, and poor Princess really is, it's going to take a long time for them to make up what happened. But the cruise ships, what they're doing is the staff is all vaccinated. So that's really good. They also are testing the staff every 3 to 4 days, which is also really good. So the staff, I feel like they're pretty covered on making sure that you're safe and secure. For the guests, again, like I had said, I just went on the inaugural sailing for the Celebrity Apex. I was checked 4 times prior to embarking the ship for my vaccine card and my negative COVID test. So they're making everyone arrive on board with a negative COVID test taken 48 hours prior to your boarding. Mm-hmm. So I think they're definitely putting all of those elements in place. Also, on the ships now, they have the ability to do rapid testing, which also helps. So if you do feel ill right away, they, have the facility on board to make sure that you're tested. And then should you test positive, what will happen is that you will be taken off the ship. And wow. So each of those, each cruise company has to have set in place at each port of call somewhere where should a guest have to quarantine, they're able to quarantine. Or should the guest have to be hospitalized, the hospital has to be approved by the cruise ship as to where the client is going. So they definitely have lots of safety measures in place to make sure that while you're cruising, you'll be okay if you were to contract COVID. But more than that, it's almost all the safety measures are in place so that the ship doesn't have to quarantine.
Mhm.
So, you know, that is definitely, you know, a safety measure they have in place. The other thing is, they again are doing a lot of small dining tables. Most of the ships are not doing big tables unless you are going with, you know, 6 or 8 of your, you know, very close friends and you're all cross-referenced and you request it. They're not randomly sitting you with folks. Most of the ships are sticking with tables of 2 and 4 so that you're not eating with random folks, because they know that's, you know, the risk is the whole eating thing. The other thing you'll see in places that the buffets are no longer buffets, they're like cafeteria buffets. So you'll go through the line and they will be serving you. They
Mhm,
also
mhm.
have hand washing stations out front before you even enter. So that's also nice. At the drink stations, they don't let you get your own drinks. They've got somebody there manning to fill your cup of coffee or your juice or whatever. So
Okay.
they definitely have lots of safety measures in place. The voyage I was on, it was fully vaccinated. So we were actually able to not wear our masks when we were indoors. I felt safe doing that, especially after 4 times checking our vaccine and COVID status. But even while I was on board, there were some folks that were still masked, and you know that was fine. But I definitely think the cruise industry, they spent a lot of time, you know, down and out, and they really, really have done everything that they possibly can to make sure that their travelers are safe. My
Mhm.
experience, I felt very safe, and I've had lots of folks who have been cruising now since it reopened and have come back, not had an issue.
Okay, thank you.
So absolutely, I hope you go and have fun.
I plan to.
Good, good.
Question?
Lisa, there's a question in the chat room.
Okay, and then we'll get Pete after.
You want to do them after?
Sure, let's look at the chat real quick.
So she has a digital vaccination card.
Yeah. So-
Is that
yeah.
okay to use?
Domestically, yes. Internationally, no. So it's on the international sites. It's actually kind of funny. They actually it says they accept the American white vaccination card with the CDC logo. So you physically have to show your vaccination card, and you do have to also show an ID with it. For instance, in Greece, everywhere we went in Greece, we had to show our vaccination card along with an ID for restaurants, for museums, to board the ferries, even checking in at our hotels. So your vaccination card traveling internationally or on a cruise is going to be your best friend. You're going to pull it out constantly. So Pete, I'll go ahead and take your question.
If you're on a cruise ship and you're pulled off to quarantine at a local port,
Yes.
how do you rejoin the cruise?
Well, for the most part, you probably won't be rejoining the cruise at all because most of the voyages have been limited to no more than 10 days right now. So you wouldn't be joining back the cruise. I would hope that you would have some travel insurance in place, that you bought it either with the cruise line or individually, because then that would help you get back home. That would be considered a trip interruption.
Okay,
And that's how you would get back to your home gateway.
thank
And
you.
then also to kind of piggyback that, which might be another question, is say your cabin mate tests negative. Your cabin mate, because they are traveling with you, have the option of either getting off the port in the port and staying at a local hotel, and then of course claiming it with the insurance, or they have the option of continuing on. So, you know, husband and wife, or, you know, travel companions that want to stay together have that option. If, you know, you're just, you know, maybe not that great of friends any longer and they want to keep cruising, they certainly can, as long as they've tested negative. Yeah, I think there's another one in the chat, it looks like.
Yeah. She's asking, she laminate her vaccine card?
So I have mine laminated, and I used my laminated one. It's, I mean, I didn't laminate obviously the original for when I get my booster. But yes, I felt it was easier to have it laminated. kind of twofold. One, I did share with you, I was in the medical field, so I am a little bit of a germaphobe. And so lots of people were handling my Vax card. So quite often I was, with my hand sanitizer, kind of rubbing it on there. So you're able to kind of wipe it down. But yes, you absolutely can do a laminated card. They are happy with that as long as you have your ID with it so that they can cross-reference the name. That's very important. Yeah,
Another question.
sure.
I've got my laminated card with my two shots.
Yeah.
If I have a booster, they can't obviously apply to the laminate card. You need to show proof of booster as well.
So right now you don't, but a lot of countries, it will start to come into play starting next year. So a lot of the countries, the way it reads, it's your last shot has to be no more than 271 days from your travel. So it's going to start to come into play. Most people, by the time they got their first shot, they're still going to be covered for this year. Moving into next year, like I'm taking a large group in April, and some of those folks who early on were able to get their shots in February definitely will have to have the booster by the time we travel. But a lot of the countries, that's what they're stating. And honestly, it's a little tricky to find that language. On my website under ideas and resources, I've got a bunch of icons, and there's an icon that will take you to each country's US embassy, and that's the best spot. So you go into the embassy under exit and entry requirements, and that's where you'll see that information.
Lisa, can you send me your website link
Sure.
and then I can send it out to everybody?
Sure. As soon as we get off, I'm happy to do that. It's in my my signature line on my email, so you
Oh, okay.
can have
All
it,
right.
but I'll send it to you. But yeah, that's the only language right now that I feel would lead to a requirement of a booster. Okay, let's see. Somebody just mentioned original vaccination card. That's confusing. There are more than one. Yeah. So when I say original vaccination card, what they're asking for is the actual CDC card that we received when we got our shot. So that's what they're calling the original vaccination card.
So when you go get the boost, I haven't gotten mine yet. They're not adding it to the card? You're getting a
They
new
are
card
adding it to the card.
Oh, they are adding it to the card.
Yes,
Okay.
they are. Yes,
Yeah.
Sonia.
Lisa, on a cruise, all those offshore expeditions that people
Yes.
have gone, have those been limited a lot? And are they still following all the guidelines or however?
So
Thank
what's happening, domestic river cruises, they're allowing you to kind of do whatever you want. So if you're doing an American Queen or a Victory or American Cruise Line or anything like that, domestically, you're able to go on and offshore, no problem. For the most part in Europe, they are making you do your shore excursions with the cruise line, and they are only taking the guests to approved vendors. So when you go on a tour internationally right now, say you did a cruise to Greece or something like that, and you're going to do one of the shore excursions, they will make sure that you are only going to shops where everyone is fully vaccinated. Your bus will have a time that you're arriving, so there'll be no other tourists and no one else in there, so you guys are free to shop or visit a glass blowing site or something like that, and then they make sure that everybody there is vaccinated. So it's kind of it makes it a little bit challenging for those folks who want to get off shore and kind of do their own thing and not do the tour. I will say they're not limited for sure. There's plenty of tour options when you're going internationally. Now, Alaska, same thing. You can do whatever you want when you get off in Alaska because it's, domestic, but internationally they are having you kind of move with your group. Yeah.
Thank you. Mhm.
Any others? I'll share with you guys too, if somebody thinks of something, and you reach out to, Diane or Sonia or any of, the leaders there at the village, they can shoot me an email, on my website, there's a contact us that comes actually right to me. I'm usually really good at responding to emails, so I'm happy to answer questions. Feel free to reach out. People call all the time. asking questions and, kind of asking advice. I will say, I do think the way the world is right now, folks who are not vaccinated, it's definitely super challenging to try and travel. I had a gal who just called this morning and wants to give her whole family a Christmas gift of a trip, and but 3 of her kids are not vaccinated, and they're grown adults. And I said it definitely is going to be challenging to find a spot that I can send you all to that's not going to require folks to be fully vaccinated. So that's definitely the one thing to keep in mind. If you've got family members or folks that are not vaccinated, it is challenging. And whatever you do, don't yell at your travel agent. We are not that powerful. We do not make the rules. But yeah. So, yeah, Sonia.
I have another sort of a question. I was hit with a canceled Italy trip a couple of years ago. So I've gotten refunds from some things. I have a credit with an excellent travel agent, that she's urging me. It's already been postponed twice. I have to use it by June 1st. And it's like $1,000. So it's, it's not any. And I did lose totally my hotel booking. They could not get a couple of the hotels in Italy. That was just lost money. So different cancellation policies exist, I know, and whether it's the airline or the hotels or the tours.
Did you buy a package?
Yeah.
You had bought a package and you still couldn't get refunded?
No, I got part of the package, but I had to travel in order to meet the leaving, to start the tour. I had to book a thing. But how much, you were negotiating, you negotiate with the people, the hotels and the airlines and all of that.
Yeah, so when we do trips internationally, it's very important as an agent that you work with a company that is covered under our like NASTA, which is our international travel companies that put up, $1 million bonds, so that travelers don't have a situation like what you had. So your situation is definitely unique because I haven't had anybody at all in all my cancellations through Italy or anything not receive hotel refunds. So that's really I'm sorry that happened to you.
I was gonna
Anything that I've booked with for any of my clients, everybody actually received a refund. I didn't, some companies even refunded insurance premiums. So I haven't heard of anybody not receiving hotel refunds, especially Italy. Italy was one country that folks, everybody received their refund because the country really shut down. There was no option. And so the vendors had to refund. So I'm sorry that happened to you. I would definitely, moving forward, always make sure that, the agent you're working with, that they only work with vendors who are approved through NASTA. So because you would not have lost your money, they would have stood behind it and backed it up. So make sure that that level of protection's in place for you, and make sure that, any agents that you guys are working for, make sure that they're all using California Seller of Travel. If they're locally, make sure that they're all using trust accounts. That's very important. That's how, like I said, my mom started her business, because they were not using a trust account. So all dollars that come into our agency are deposited right into a trust account, and they are not touched until they are designated for that particular client. There are very, very strict rules, and unfortunately there are folks and agencies like ourselves who follow all the rules, but then there are some that don't. And make sure that you guys are always sticking with somebody.
Refunds, did you get 100% back or just a percentage?
For the most part, almost everybody that I worked with got either 100%. The lowest amount was there were about maybe 4 or 5 people that got 75% of their entire trip cost. But that's maybe only 4 or 5. Yeah. So, and most of the airlines did at the beginning all full refunds, or if the client opted to take an air credit, most of them allowed up to 2 to 3 years to use them. I actually have folks that they have air credits that have been extended and they are able to travel in 2023 as long as it's before the end of, I think it's June or something of 23. So yeah, just keep that in mind moving forward. I feel like, we all kind of, there's silver linings. Like we all kind of learn from, our everyone's mistakes and all different vendors and how they handled themselves. I say, I cried a lot at my kitchen table. I am not proud to say it, or sad to say it, but I also realized, how I handle myself and how I advocate for my clients is what's going to define me and our agency. And so I kind of, pulled up my big girl pants and brushed off the tears and realized I was ready to fight the fight. And, I was successful. So, I'm proud of the way I handled it. But, and obviously my clients are happy, and have come back and referred, et cetera. So yeah. I don't want to say Pete, but that's what the square says. Sorry.
Really? Hi. You had mentioned you were taking a group out. So do you actually lead some of the tours?
I do every once in a while. I'll go with groups. I have so I'm Italian, obviously, and I do a tour once a year for my Italian club. And so I sell out a tour just for them. And so myself and 47 of my friends from my Italian club are all going to Italy in April. So I will guide that trip. In the past, my mom actually used to guide it. Like I said, she's retired and my mom actually has dementia, so she's unable to guide the trips any longer. So I've stepped into that role. And now that my kids are older, it's easier for me to travel. So, but yes, I do go out with some groups. Yeah.
So like if we would not find on your website that, this year I'm planning to go here and there and sign up for my group, that type of thing.
Yeah. It's kind of funny you say that. I've been kicking that around, and thinking of possibly doing like one trip a year where I kind of open it up just to any traveler, who wants to travel with Travel Center or travel with Lisa and doing a hosted trip. Again, now that my kids are older and I sort of am toying with it. So if I do decide to do something like that, I'll definitely, let Arlene or Sonia or Diane know and have her get that out to the community. But it's definitely something I've thought about. And I feel like, a lot of folks might feel a little bit more comfortable traveling, internationally or overseas, knowing they've kind of got somebody there with them, from the community or from the agency or, whatever, just so you kind of have that point person.
Thank you.
Do you have a mailing list that we can join?
What, I do have a mailing list, and if you want to type that into the chat box, I'm happy. Or if Diane or Sonia want to give me email addresses, I can certainly add them. I have I do group travel, but I also have an individual travel email blast that every once in a while, if there's really great deals, I'll shoot out an email. I try not to overload folks, but I do shoot out an email every once in a while of like, oh, this resort in Hawaii has an amazing sale, and this might be something you want to look at. So I'm certainly happy to do
Diane
that.
know that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So if we go to your website, can you sign up for those blasts on there?
If you go up, no, you'd have to just go to the contact us and just say, hey, Lisa, or could you sign me up for the
Okay.
e-blast, and I'd be happy to do it. It's right there. There's a contact button. Like I said, it comes right to my desk.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. And Diane, could you put it on gallery view so we can see everybody? And maybe
Oh, I can probably stop sharing my screen too. I'm sorry. That probably helps.
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
But here's my question. I wanted to bring it back down to more local trips.
Yeah.
When you're talking about bus tours and things, we tried at Clayton Valley Village really hard twice to have a trip to go to the wine country in Lodi, and we had the whole thing planned out and all. We didn't get enough people to sign up that we could afford the public transportation. We needed it because of the liability insurance. So
was that with the local local bus company.
No, we investigated 2 or 3, but yes, it was all
Yeah, so
local,
that's kind
Walnut Creek. But it was the liability insurance that made it so expensive. We couldn't generate that many people within our own
Yes.
village.
So
we
for
tried.
Travel Center, we
Yeah.
have our own liability insurance that covers any groups that we contract with. So say Clayton Village decides to do a day trip with us to San Francisco with a San Francisco guide, you're covered under our insurance. So we have an umbrella policy that covers all of our groups. So you would be covered under our liability insurance. You wouldn't be required to take out a secondary insurance. And then the motor coach company has insurance as well. So we all work together. There's no need for additional insurance when you contract through an agent. If you yourself called and contracted a motor coach, yes, you would have to take out liability insurance because you would be considered the host or the guide. And if somebody falls off the bus, they're going to certainly sue Sonia rather than, if somebody falls off the bus that Travel Center has contracted, they of course sue us, which knock on wood hasn't happened in many, many years, but it does happen.
Yeah. So the cost would be more manageable. Say if we wanted to go to Lodi again for this wine trip, we had, it was a day trip, but
Yeah.
well planned.
Yeah, that's
Cost
exactly
would
what we
be
do.
more
Yeah.
reasonable then. Okay.
Exactly. And that's something we could definitely, talk about offline about, pricing and numbers, et cetera. But yes, we do all the day trips. So we kind of have almost this whole 680 corridor of centers. So if you go to Walnut Creek or Concord or Pleasant Hill, or you're a SURS member, or you're Dublin, soon to be San Ramon, soon to be Livermore, those are all the centers that we contract with over here on that corridor. So very likely if you're, pulling flyers for, some of those trips, those are trips that Travel Center has contracted and put
Okay.
together. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any more questions? Well, thank you so much, Lisa. That was very informative.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
And Arlene, thank you for putting it together.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah.
Arlene, for coming into the office and
Hi, Sonia.
introducing.
Hi there. I just- yeah. I
Oh,
took a
Sonia's taking pictures. Oh, good. Okay.
picture, but I'm always sort of behind the, if anybody else wants to.
We got some screenshots too.
Did
Oh,
you
good.
get it?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think this was really nice, really helpful and